Good afternoon, folks. This is Greg Steen, and you're listening to Truth for Seniors, heard every day on Central Valley Talk, Wednesday, every day at 2 p.m. So glad to have you with us. Today we have a very exciting guest, at least in my viewpoint. I hope you'll find the same to be true once we get him on. Been looking forward to this for quite a while, and we've had a couple attempts here and had to reschedule and get some things done. So I'm very excited to have our guest here in a minute who's going to tell us about VA benefits. But before we get there, I just want to remind you that you can find Truth for Seniors on the web all over the place. We're at truthforseniors.com. You can follow us on Twitter and on Facebook, Google+. And you know what? We'd love to have your input because this really is about you. It's about the content that you're looking for and requesting. It's about really what's best for you. And as we've always said, we're going to give you the most up-to-date and accurate information possible. We're going to bring experts on the show who will give you the truth instead of me trying to give you the little bit that I might know about a subject. And so after 27 years of helping seniors, I've learned a thing or two, but I've also forgotten a thing or two and realize that it's much better to bring you experts. And so today's guest is exactly that. But I want to thank you for all the input that you've been giving us. Truth for Seniors is becoming very well known, and the input that you've been providing has been just tremendous. It's really helped shape the show, and that's why we do it. And so Truth for Seniors right now is sponsored by Steen & Company, which is a local estate planning firm here in Fresno and in the Central Valley. And we're about protecting your life savings. And so if you want to learn a little bit more about that, you can go to protectyourlifesavings.com. And everything's there, and you can follow us and like us and understand what we're all about, because really it's all about you and how to protect you, how to inform you and give you the most up-to-date and accurate information possible. So hey, a couple things coming up real quick, just so you'll know. We do have next week's guest, which is a wonderful attorney friend and paralegal that's going to give us a lot of good basic information on wills versus trusts and powers of attorney, advanced health care directives, and how things should be titled and pros and cons and all that. That's one of the biggest things people have asked us about, so don't miss next week's show because we're going to have that. And so moving forward, today's show is something that, like I say, we have tried to put together for a while, and so we're grateful that we've got in my opinion, one of the nation's top experts as far as VA benefits. He's a VA accredited attorney. His name is Scott Sexton, and Scott's joining us now from, I believe, Kansas, if I remember right. So, Welcome. Appreciate you being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, this is one of the most requested subjects that we have. It's a topic that seems to be very misunderstood. There's a lot of misinformation. I know if you Google, for instance, VA benefits or aid and attendance, you find all kinds of information. And you would know better than me, of course, but I think some of it's just not very accurate. And so one of the things that we've always told people, Scott, on this show is, 10 years ago, you had to go to the source to find out information about pretty much any subject. Well, now you can get on the internet in 5 minutes, become fairly knowledgeable, but in 25 minutes, become so confused it's not even funny. And what happens is most people end up doing nothing because they don't know, is the information accurate? Is it up to date? Is it credible, the source? And so they do nothing, and people go without benefits. And, I know that so many people are not being informed. And so I'm glad you're on the show. But so one of the questions I had is, can you tell us a little bit about the Veterans Aid and Attendance? It's a non-service connected disability pension, and who qualifies?
Well, the benefit that I think of that you wanted me to talk about is what I call the improved pension with aid and attendance add-on benefit. Mm-hmm. There's an umbrella of benefits by several different names, and anytime you speak with anyone about these benefits, they'll probably have a different name for it. So really? Whenever we're talking about aid and attendance or improved pension or widow's pension or anything like that, we're usually talking about a category of benefits that can pay a married veteran with a non-veteran spouse up to about $2,000 $80,000 a month tax-free. For single veterans, that figures down to a little more than $1,700 a month. And for the widows of veterans, that figure can be as much as a little more than $1,100 a month, again, tax-free.
Yeah.
These are benefits that are awarded to senior veterans who are at least 65 years of age or older. They meet certain asset criteria regarding everything from their vehicles, their home, to their investments and savings. And finally, there's a category of tests that the VA will run you through regarding your need for care. Do you have basic needs that need to be satisfied in order to maintain a minimal quality of living? And additionally, do you have the financial means of properly supporting those needs?
Mm-hmm.
So those batteries of tests can be extremely overwhelming and extremely confusing. Worse yet, many of the source materials out there, either online or even at the VA themselves, can be horribly misleading. The most common misconception that I run into speaking with veterans and their families is the notion that you have to have at least less than $80,000 to qualify. And that is absolutely correct. You do need to have adjusted assets below that threshold. However, there are lots of misconceptions. First of all, misconception is if I have more than $80,000, I'm going to be automatically disqualified. And that is inaccurate.
Okay.
You are allowed to have more than $80,000. However, you need to be able to claim adjustments, write-offs, and exemptions for any assets in excess of your limit. Now, the other misconception people have is the exact opposite. If I have less than $80,000, I'm automatically entitled, and that's incorrect as well. The mistake that a lot of people make is that the rule states that if you have more than $80,000, you're automatically disqualified. It makes no reference to whether or not you'd be qualified if you have less than $80,000.
Okay.
And the VA uses their discretion to decide who is allowed to get this benefit from the group of people that have less than $80,000. So you may have $75,000 in cash, and the VA will likely reject you. It depends a lot on a number of different factors, and part of the reason it's so important to speak with accredited individuals or organizations is that they'll be able to more specifically tailor the VA's criteria to your specific situation, figure out where exactly your real thresholds might be, and advise you in a way that can help you meet with your own unique threshold that the VA assigned you.
Interesting. Yeah, that is something that I've seen a lot, and there is a big misconception about the $80,000 figure. So, and my understanding is you have to be, you have to have served during a period of conflict. You have to be 65 and above, as you mentioned. One of the other criteria is that you have to have at least 90 days of active duty with an honorable discharge, and that you have to have at least one of those days during a period of conflict. But is it true that you don't actually have to have been in the conflict?
Yes, although there are unique rules to different conflicts. The general rule of thumb is the older the war, the more generous the rule. So, for example, there are lots of different places that you could have been serving and still qualify for World War II or Korea. You could have been in different parts of the world. Then when we get into 1960s with Vietnam, there are specific military dates where you've had to have had boots on the ground in Vietnam. It's not good enough that you stayed on a boat in the early 1960s, either offshore or even on a river. You have to have certain boots on the ground dates in order to be qualified for Vietnam. Now, later Vietnam dates, again, the requirements loosened a little bit in that you could have been in many different places. For example, I recently worked with a family where a veteran served exclusively in the United States and spent his entire service during the Vietnam War driving supplies between Oregon and Texas. So there are lots of different service, types of service that can qualify. It depends a lot on the dates of service that you provided, where you were located at, and what you were actually doing at the time. But again, the rule is the earlier the war, World War II, Korea, the rules are much more generous. The been almost anywhere in the world, so long as you were serving in general war efforts. And then the more recent conflicts, Vietnam, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Afghanistan, those types of conflicts have much more restrictive rules regarding where and when you were serving and what.
Okay. One of the things that has been very well publicized is the VA backlog of caseload and what's going on, and maybe after the break we can talk about that real quick, and then I'd like to get into the ways that people apply. But folks, you're listening to Truth for Seniors, and we're fortunate enough to have Scott Sexton, who is a VA accredited attorney, giving us some of the lowdown on all these benefits. And so we're going to be right back. We're going to take a quick break here at Truth for Seniors. Hey folks, we're back. This is Truth for Seniors, and we're coming to you from Fresno, California on CentralValleyTalk.com, the Central Valley's greatest and best recording studio and TV station, in my opinion, where you get a lot of information that you just may not get anywhere else. And so today we're talking with, in my opinion, one of the nation's top experts as far as VA improved pensions and VA benefits. And that's not him saying it, that's me saying it. But I'm Greg Steen, your host, and we're joined by Scott Sexton. So Scott, thank you for continuing with us today. We're talking about these benefits, and I thought it might be good to just talk about, we've kind of covered who qualifies and the benefit amounts, the fact that they're tax-free, but there's so many misconceptions out there, and I think to be able to talk a little bit about maybe the way that you process things, the way you look at things, or why that might be preferable. I know with my own clients, we've tried over the years, we've tried to use the local veteran service offices, and we found that some are good and some are really, really inefficient. And then we've used some other law firms that are now out of business in Tennessee, and we've just run the gamut of different things there, and people spending literally $5,000 and more to get their benefits. We've used local VSOs at the local hospital here and found that, it was just very hard to get in to see them because there's no appointments and they're so overwhelmed, bless their hearts. One told me the other day that, she says, no offense, Greg, but she goes, I probably won't ever reply to you because I get over 150 emails a day. I get over 100 calls a day, and it's just me. She says, you're going to have to come in and see me. So when I need really some help, I show up really early and I bring her a donut and a cup of coffee and, hope that I'm first in line because they're just so overwhelmed. And so imagine, our elderly clients looking to go and help, get some help. And it's so frustrating. And so I know that much has been publicized about the backlog in the last year. I know right on the door of one of the veteran service offices, it says the average wait in California is, I think now 349 days, but I've heard that it's getting better. I've heard they have a new computer system. Do you know anything about that, or?
Well, unfortunately, with like all things with the VA, there's a lack of transparency in finding out what the truth is with what exactly the VA is doing. I receive stories almost constantly from various contacts and other attorneys that do work I do all throughout the country. And there really just isn't a good sense of what exactly it is and isn't being changed. I heard a story today that the Philadelphia Pension Management Center, for example, was sending and having a lot of their cases worked by the Minneapolis-St. Paul Pension Management Center. It's hard to really sift rumors from the truth of the matter. What I can say is what I myself have direct experience with. And what I have seen is that in the last few years, there has been a growing, a progressively much worse backlog of these cases pending before the VA. It's not that uncommon for organizations such as mine to see wait times of 2-3 years even. I still have cases that I was dealing with as long as 3, even 4 years back at this point. And those cases, fortunately, aren't the common ones. Those are very rare exceptions rather than the rule. Back at the end of last year, we had been using the VA's fully developed or expedited processing
Mm-hmm.
tools. And we began that process as early as July of 2013. And relatively regularly from those applications that we were seeing a turnaround time averaging about 6 to 9 weeks in almost all parts of the country.
Wow.
Now, the West Coast has a little bit more drag time on those claims than the central parts of the country. If you're east of California at all, but west of, say, the immediate East Coast, then you're probably going to fall in line with a running time of about 6 to 9 weeks. I add another 2 to 3 weeks for the West Coast, and it's a dice roll when it comes to the East Coast. East Coast is the worst part of the country for types of benefits.
Okay.
That's what I had been quoting people. There has been a little bit of increase on the West Coast due to the holiday slowdown.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the country has stayed relatively stable with those 6 to 9 weeks in the majority of the country, and kind of a dice roll out on the East Coast. Although for the central part of the country, anything going through Minneapolis, St. Paul, or even along the west coast of the country, I have seen turnaround times in the month of March and March and February as low as 3 weeks. So we are seeing a dramatic speed up again.
That's awesome.
And I'm hopeful that it stays that way. But the expedited processing program that the VA has in place right now has proven to be a very effective way of reducing the backlog, or at least from the perspective of those who are starting to apply. Now, this only applies to people who are now starting to apply. Those who have been in the system for years, this doesn't represent a change in anything. They're still oftentimes stuck with these slower processors for whatever reason, and we're just stuck fighting those claims.
Yeah. Okay. So can you explain it, if you can, what is the fully developed process?
A fully developed claim is an abbreviated application to the VA.
Okay.
However, it has a complete listing of all evidence necessary at the time of the initial application that the VA needs to determine a given claim. Again, basically my job as the applying attorney and my staff job, we have to put together an application that has no dangling strings. Every last little loose end has to be tied up. We have to have evidence of everything that we're presenting, and we need to do so in a way that follows the VA's format that they're requiring us to present the case. Okay. So on the one hand, it's a very detail-intensive process, but on the other hand, by spending that extra maybe week on your application, I can shave months off on the back end of an application.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's incredibly good news for a lot of people, because I know, I've heard this so many times, and I'm sure that you have as well, probably a lot more, that people just realized the process, and at some point they just gave up, because it was so overwhelming, so frustrating. I have a client who recently got the benefit, and then her husband passed away and was due a lot of other monies, and just said, it's been such a hassle, I don't even want to mess with it. And I can't I can't blame her. I understand. But we too have had people that have taken months and months and months, a year and a half, 2 years. I actually heard the other day from one of our newest clients that they did it themselves, and it took 6 years and a month to get the benefit for his dad. That's the most I've ever heard. And that obviously is an extreme situation, but they just kept asking for more information and kept asking, and they lost the information 3 times, sent it certified, trackable and all that, and they lost it. And so no wonder people are frustrated, and no wonder they just figure, what, I'm giving up. I know a lot of people get denied and they don't know their options. And so I appreciate that. That's incredibly good news for people to think that they could have the benefits, because it's been my experience, most people aren't seeking the benefits until they're already pretty well into a program where maybe they've been paying for in-home care, they're concerned about running out of money, I just had one the other day that actually referred to you where, they can't afford their in-home care more than about 3 more months, and they finally decided to start asking questions about what options might be out there. And so that's very encouraging. And because at this point, you're talking about somebody maybe having to, move into a skilled nursing home, which is really not what they need medically. Even the doctor said that. But they don't have any options. The kids have to work. They can't care for them, and the gentleman needs 24/7 care. And so this is great. This is really good. One of the things...
And I hate to interject.
No, go ahead.
And a really important point on that is that, again, as a general rule, the earlier you approach these types of issues, the better the end result will be for you. And this applies not only to veterans and their families, but all families across the spectrum.
Sure.
Because whether or not you have $10 million in the bank, or you have a great long-term care insurance policy, or you don't have any of those, you need to be doing something. The younger you are, the better.
Absolutely.
If you're 65 years of age or older and haven't had this conversation with your spouse, your kids, your family, whoever, you need to have it immediately, because it is an absolute crisis in this country. Because the vast majority of families do not speak to professionals who can properly advise them on these points. The options available to you, the younger you are so much better. And it doesn't have to be something as complex as you have to buy a brand new trust fund or anything like that.
Sure.
The very simple financial planning elements that you can speak to your advisors about that can put you along the path of setting yourself up, not only for VA benefits, but for other benefits. There are lots of other things that fall under the same umbrella that anybody can qualify for, as long as you do the proper planning.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I appreciate that. That's something that all of our viewers will know, that we have been passionate about asking people to pre-plan and to have these conversations like you mentioned. I imagine you've been watching the show, because you know what? It's so true. And especially the older generation, they've been really private. They haven't wanted to be a burden on their family. They have gone to great lengths to not be a burden, to save their money, to spend wisely, to be good stewards. So they're not a burden, but unfortunately something happens and then they are a burden because they didn't have that conversation. The kids don't know what mom and dad have, what their income is, what their coverages are, and they don't know their wishes, and all of a sudden they have a crisis. And that's the thing that we just really hate to see, because that makes a difficult situation compounded and so much worse. And so I appreciate that input. That's so good. So folks, you're watching Truth for Seniors, and we are talking about VA benefits, and we're really getting into some good things, and we're going to take a break here real quick, but when we get back, we're going to talk about the process and the best way to apply, in our opinion, and why probably there's some ways that will suit you better than others when you're looking for benefits and trying to get your benefits from the VA. So this is Truth for Seniors. We'll be right back. Anyway, just glad that you joined us today, folks. We're just really into a great subject that I know a lot of you have asked us about, which is veterans benefits, how to obtain them, what they really are, where you can go to get them, get more information. And as we've always promised you, this is a show that gives you the most up-to-date and accurate information, bringing you experts. I think the tagline there says, "Our experts, your solutions." And so we're bringing you a solution today. On the line with us from Kansas is a good friend, Scott Sexton, who, in my opinion, has the answers that we're looking for, and I know is a real expert, somebody that has sought out the information and researched it and has a great caseload in the type of benefit planning that we're talking about. And so before the break, he made a great point, and I just want to reiterate, folks, if you've got a loved one that is really going to need some help at some point, and you really haven't gotten started, at truthforseniors.com, if you follow us on Twitter, we have tons of information there that, on adding more every week about ways to get yourself some help, to get educated, to know your rights, know your options, and make a difficult process perhaps a little easier by getting educated and getting the right information, and hopefully cutting through a lot of the stuff that may be confusing and misleading for whatever reason. A lot of misconceptions out there, a lot of myths, and so we try to bring you the facts. So back to Mr. Sexton here. One of the things that you mentioned, we talked about the fully developed case, and that's such great news. But maybe you can just kind of cover real quick, what are the ways typically that people can apply, and then maybe contrast that with how it works when they go through you.
Absolutely. The simplest and most available option for most families is they can log on the computer, they can go to the VA's website, and they can start downloading forms. The VA's website does have the availability to help walk through to a certain extent. I liken this to paying taxes. That's the best analog I can give you. So it's no different than if you want to figure out how to pay your own taxes, you can log on the computer, go to the IRS website, fill out the forms online. The next option that's available to most people is you can go to your local VSO, your American Legion, your VFW, the VA hospital. Any number of those types of organizations have someone on staff that's available to help you fill out the paperwork and advise you on whether they think that you're qualified for benefits or not. Mm-hmm. Problem with doing that, and the same goes for doing the work online, is it's a lot like going to the IRS and asking them to prepare your taxes. If you go to your local IRS office and you just throw your paperwork down on the desk and say, how much do I owe in taxes? What are the odds that they're going to sit down, spend the appropriate amount of time going through your paperwork with you and tell you exactly how you can write off all of your income? Chances of that happening are pretty much non-existent. Yep. The same thing applies for the VA. If you go online, no one is advocating your position except for yourself. If you go to the VSO, technically, yes, the VSO is required to represent your interests. However, most VSOs, they're not trained legal personnel. Mm-hmm. These are mostly volunteer organizations. They do great work for a lot of people, but to be honest with you, they don't have training, nor the expertise, nor the legal background to properly advocate anyone's case who has something more complex than an automatic qualified for these benefits. In some cases, VSOs are prohibited from offering complex legal advice because they're not licensed attorneys. Sure. And so therefore,
makes sense.
Yeah, they may have an idea of how you can get around this rule, but their state's laws may prohibit them from giving you that advice because they're not attorneys. Mm-hmm. So the advantage of working with a VA accredited person, such as a VA accredited agent, or more, even better, VA accredited attorney, the advantage that you have through a VA accredited attorney is we can advise you on the rules, regulations that the VA has for different benefits. We can represent you, and only you. My interests aren't the VA's. I'm not there representing their bottom line. I have to represent yours as the client. And then finally, as a VA accredited attorney, I'm allowed to give you legal advice that allows you to work within those VA guidelines. I can get you referrals to other professionals that can also provide their area of expertise. Local attorneys in your jurisdiction who can give you comprehensive estate planning advice. Local financial planners who are allowed to give you financial planning advice. Those are key components to doing this type of federal work. And it's something that, again, if you go to a VSO, you go online, that's not the type of advice a computer can give you very easily. And that's why I encourage everyone, if you can, try to work with individuals such as VA accredited attorneys on this type of project.
That's great. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. You know, it's a lot of things that that I think people miss by not using the expertise of somebody who's gone before you. It's like anything else. If you're going to go through a minefield, you probably want to follow somebody, and I think veterans would probably understand that better than anybody. But well, just to take that maybe a step further, so somebody inquires of you and your firm, can you kind of walk us through the process of what you do? You kind of took us through that, you know, as far as an overview, but I believe you have like a review process, and then tell us a little bit about that.
No, absolutely. And the process I hopefully I'm going to be going through is something that's relatively common to most VA accredited attorneys who do this type of work. But again, understand that what I'm just going to give everybody today is just a general walkthrough of what I personally do. So
Sure.
let's say a family comes in off the streets into my office and says, Scott, I want to know if I'm going to qualify for VA benefit ABC. The first thing that I'm going to talk to the family about is I usually like to do a little bit of just sort of getting to know them, see if I think they are a fit for this type of program.
Sure.
And if I do think this is something that is worthy of their exploration. So let's say they come to me and say, Scott, I was a veteran. I didn't serve during a time of war. I served, say, in let's call it 1948. And I served in Kansas guarding a missile silo or something. I know from that information that the veteran probably is going to qualify based on that military service. So I can tell them at that point, hey, look, I don't think this is the best fit for you. Let's look at some other stuff. And so we go in and we evaluate that other stuff. But let's say they told me, hey, look, Scott, I was serving in Hawaii on the day of Pearl Harbor's attack.
Okay.
That obviously is a very clear-cut service date. They were providing military service during the time of war. We should be able to meet those military criteria. If I think then that we have something to work with, what I would invite them to do is if they want me to, I can provide an evaluation. Most legal professionals who do this type of work, they charge consulting fees to do evaluations. And what the goal of this evaluation process is to take a look at the specific details, go through their history with a fine-tooth comb, not only to identify VA projects that may be important, but other legal issues that may be worth visiting as well. There are lots of other benefits. There are lots of other ways that you can protect yourself. And so part of our evaluation process, we look through comprehensively, not only at your VA eligibility, but for other things that may be worth considering as well. And then I issue an opinion. This is very important because it gives you a formal writing showing what we think is available to you and what steps can be taken to get you from where you're at now to where you're getting the benefit.
Awesome.
Usually that letter is a dense legal letter. Legalese is not the most enjoyable thing for people to read. So what I offer people who receive one of these opinion letters, I'd be happy to sit down and explain it to you. So I either have a phone call with the family or I bring them into my office and we sit down and we go through the letter together. I break it down into the most basic criteria that the VA is looking for, explain why they do or don't qualify under those items, and then if there are items where they don't qualify, we discuss what can be done to qualify for those benefits.
Okay.
After we've gone through that meeting process, I conclude usually by giving the family options. I want you to speak to financial advisors to talk about this. I want you to speak to your family attorney to talk about this. I want you to, and we give them a list of things that they can pursue if they want to pursue this benefit. So let's say I give them some advice that involves contacting their family attorney and having them draw something up. Usually the family will go, they'll hire that family's attorney. The family attorney may or may not call me up and want to consult with me on the project. If they want me to fully consult on it, I can offer consulting packages to them. If they want to just run a couple of ideas past me, I'm fine doing that at no cost. Once the family has followed my guidance on getting from where they're at to a qualifying position, I go back through things one more time with my team. We make sure that nothing has been missed either in the personal evaluation or in the work that the family put together. So let's say we're meeting with the family. They've gone to their attorney. They've had some kind of a legal document drawn up to get them eligible. They're now eligible. My team will handle the application process itself. So up to this point, no actual application work has been done. From that point forward, my team and I make ourselves available to handle that application. We represent the client directly, and there is no cost for that work. The VA prohibits an attorney such as myself, even a VA accredited one, from charging you unreasonable fees for that work. Currently, I believe that the VA does allow for a minor fee to be charged, but it's something like $1 or $2 that an attorney can charge. It's something so ridiculously low that we don't even bother with.
Sure.
We do not charge fees, and I always advocate other attorneys do the same. We do not charge fees to prepare that application or to represent you during the consideration of that action.
Okay.
Attorneys can only charge fees for either preliminary evaluation work that does not involve the application itself. So we're not preparing or representing you at that point before the VA. And we can charge fees for appellate work. So if we need to appeal a decision. As a general rule, I try not to go to the appellate level, and so I typically don't have a whole lot of cases sitting around where we charge fees for that work. My goal and my job really is to make sure that we don't get that far in the case, because we're getting you an award before we reach the appellate level. So that's a typical summary of what a case through our office would look like.
That's great.
Whether they're working with me on legal projects or whether they have their own legal team help.
Sure. Okay. So if I heard you right, there's people send you information, you review their medical, their income, their resources, the situation, everything that's kind of get an idea of their life from their perspective, and then with your knowledge and understanding, you make some recommendations. You basically let them know if they qualify and if now's the right time to apply, or if maybe some things need to be done first. And so that's awesome. I just want to remind you folks, we're talking with Scott Sexton, a VA accredited attorney, talking about VA benefits and some of the little known facts that are out there about this. And so this is Truth for Seniors. We're going to take our last break, I believe, for the day, and we'll be right back. We're back. This is Truth for Seniors. I'm Greg Steen. I'm joined by Scott Sexton, who is a VA accredited attorney and has given us great information about VA benefits, how to apply, who qualifies, the benefit amounts. And if you just join us, this show will be available soon. You just keep in touch with Truth for Seniors. As you know, you can find us at truthforseniors.com. We're also on Twitter and just about every place on social media now. You can find us. Facebook is getting a lot of good information to us. Appreciate that. This is a subject that you have asked us to get information to you about, and I hope this has been helpful to you. We've certainly looked forward to doing this today. So we talked briefly about when people should begin the process with Scott. And Scott, you're very straightforward and I believe very passionate about getting people to plan ahead and not waiting until you're in a crisis situation. Maybe we can talk just a little bit about the ways that this applies, to bring it into kind of where people are at today. These are benefits that in essence are like a reimbursement, correct?
I wouldn't even call them a reimbursement.
Okay.
I would call them just a straight out pension.
Okay.
This is an award from the VA, not based solely on financial need. This is a pension that is awarded to individuals who provided services. And so that's why, I'm very passionate about distinguishing this from any type of reimbursement or a welfare program. Those are very different. Welfare and reimbursement programs are things that are available to anybody who's a citizen of the United States.
Sure.
That's something you can just dumb luck your way into.
Okay.
You can't dumb luck your way into VA benefits. You have to put your life and time on the line.
Sure.
You provide service to this country, and that's how you earn these types of benefits.
Absolutely.
Or you had loved ones who did it. So because there is an act to earn it, and I emphasize earning very intentionally.
Sure.
I think that really these benefits are something more akin to a pension. I earn my pension benefit because I go to work every day and I put away money in my pension fund.
Sure.
Veterans earn this by providing certain services. So that's, again, not to beat a dead horse, but that's the distinction.
That's just helping us even further, though, getting rid of the misconceptions and the understanding, and I appreciate that. So let me give you an example. Maybe, mom and dad are living at home and dad's a veteran, a qualifying veteran. They're looking to bring in some in-home care. Potentially, is this a benefit that could help them with some of the cost of the in-home care?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Something a lot of people don't realize is they look at these benefits and they think, that they're more akin to federal Medicaid or federally mandated Medicaid benefits like Medi-Cal,
Sure.
where I have to be in assisted living, or I need to be in hospice, or I need to meet these criteria, and that's incorrect. We actually meet a lot of families where mom and dad may live at home. They medically would really benefit from having institutional type of care, either assisted living or even nursing care, but they're able to stay at home because they have family members who
Sure.
help care for them. And someone in that type of position is just as entitled for these types of pension. The difference is you have to submit the right types of paperwork. You have to make the right kinds of argument and frame your finances in just the right light so that you can get it. But absolutely, there are ways to work with exactly this type of scenario where you have mom and dad at home, they need care, and they don't want to go into assisted or nursing.
Sure. Okay. So I know a lot of assisted living facilities will refer people to people like myself looking to get information to people that are veterans to help them cover the cost of assisted living, skilled nursing the same. Now, I want to just, folks, give you my opinion on something real quick because it's important to me that we get the benefits out, and Scott wants to comment on this. He's free to, but don't have to. But I'm very passionate about getting veterans their benefits. Work with a lot of local veterans experts. We've got the VA home here actually open now after about 11 years and $20 million. And the crazy thing is, we just moved my father-in-law in there, and they're adding 2 people a month. They've got this huge, beautiful facility, and they're adding 2 people a month. It's like, it just doesn't seem like they're as efficient as possibly they could be. So I'm looking at a news release that is dated December 19th of 2006 from the Department of Veterans Affairs. Secretary Nicholson's title, it says, VA reaches out to veterans and spouses, quote unquote, aid in attendance and underused benefit. So the quote was, veterans have earned this benefit by their service to our nation. I wholeheartedly agree. We want to ensure that every veteran or surviving spouse who qualifies has the chance to apply. I'm in full agreement. One of the things that I disagree with, and this is just my personal opinion, I'm not speaking for Scott, but that a veteran who maybe was financially successful, or a veteran who was a good saver, or a good, more so in my experience, very frugal and good with their money, saved a little bit of money, and perhaps would not qualify. In my personal opinion, I think it ought to be one qualifying factor, and that's, did you serve our country or not, period. That being said, in all my workshops, that memo basically goes on to say, we're going to get the word out. We've not gotten the word out. We're going to do a better job. So I always ask people, folks, have you got any memos or any letters from the VA letting you know about these benefits? People look at me like, are you serious? Of course we haven't. In, 2006, this is 2014, so in probably 7 or 8 years since that memo came across my desk, I have never had one person tell me the VA ever contacted them. So in my personal opinion, I think that's a crying shame, and we need to get the word out, and that's why we're doing the type of show that we're doing today and trying to help people understand there are benefits out there. I don't know if you care to comment about that, Scott, but if you do, feel free. If you want to leave it alone, that's fine too. But
well, I'll try not to use harsh language. I deal with the VA on a daily basis. I speak with lots of hardworking individuals at the VA, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that the VA as an institution has absolutely failed as far as informing people about these types of benefits. I found out about this program originally because I was going through this with my own. I had a grandfather at the time who was in nursing care, would have qualified for these benefits probably about 10 years before we had found out about it. And it's something that we took as a family very personally, that we were entitled to assistance, and there was no effort on behalf of anyone to notify us about it. As is often the case with the government, where the government fails to provide answers, a solution will develop in one of two ways. The first is through private industry, which is private companies like myself, other advisors, other people trying to find ways to work within the legal bounds and earn a living. And it's a normal, expected outcome from when the government drops the ball. The other solution to these types of issues is for people to really rise up and en masse start burning things, and we're talking revolution in many of these cases. And we, of course, don't want that.
Sure.
The solution, unfortunately, that the government has looked to in the past few years has been not to fix the problem or to try to help people, but it's been quite the opposite, and that is to take away these types of benefits.
Scott, let me interrupt you real quick.
One thing I do want to leave people with, do not worry that these benefits are going to be taken. That's not what I wanted. I don't want people afraid that, oh no, the VA is going to take my money away.
Sure.
That's not going to happen. I think anyone who's getting the benefits or is in the process of getting those benefits, you don't have to worry about that.
Scott, we got about 30 seconds.
That you don't want these types of things taken away from you. Please contact your representatives. Let them know that you too are passionate about veterans receiving proper compensation, and that any effort made by the federal government to take these benefits away or to limit the eligibility of individuals for these benefits, that you oppose those. So I would encourage people to use that means of fighting back against the government's efforts to limit people's eligibility for these benefits.
I appreciate that, Scott. Hey, I'm going to have to tell you, thank you so much for your time today and your information. I know our audience is going to appreciate that greatly. Folks, we've been listening to Scott Sexton, a VA accredited attorney, who has just given us great information, and I hope that you enjoyed the show. Hope you were given information that you didn't have prior. So, Scott, thank you very much. And we're going to sign off. It's been fun today. We're Truth for Seniors, and we're here for you every Wednesday at 2. Have a great day.